ahead. And Iranians are at least 10 to 15 years away. So world knows, Americans knows, Israelis know very well. The real threat is Pakistan. President Bush had just recently gave a statement saying the next president will have to deal with Pakistan. I have cleared up almost what he means is I have softened the country up.
I've cleared the way, you just have to basically
I've cleared the way, you just come and polish them up. Now, we need to wake up. In Pakistan, there is no government today. I'll be very honest. There is no government today because the parliament is not performing. When the parliament is not taking decisions, parliament is not debating any issue, that means there is no government. What is the difference between this government then and the previous government, where you would say one person would take the decision? The entire responsibility then comes on the local government. The provincial government have to take care of its own local security issues. The Balochistan government try to handle its own, and there is no coordination of a national security policy. So what's happening is Pakistan needs to very seriously, the government has to get its act together. If the government cannot get its act together, I'm afraid the scenario that's going to build up in the next couple of months is going to force the government, either force a change in Islamabad or force the government to mend its ways. Because this scenario, as it is building up, the pressure that's building up on Pakistan cannot go on for long. Pakistan will have to react and respond very solidly on this.
So last question, which I would like to ask both of you, starting with you, sir. What does the worsening situation in the tribal areas, should the situation in the tribal areas worsen, what is it going to mean for the rest of the country?
I will start from the tribal region. In fact, I just briefly go to the agreements in Waziristan, because we had agreements with the militants. It is not true that this government is doing talks or dialogue with the militants, but at the past the President Musharraf government also had dialogue. The first agreement was signed in 2004 with Commander Naik Muhammad, who was killed 1 month after the agreement. So they were not implemented. The second was with Baitullah Masud in 2005 in August. The second was in North Waziristan in 2006 on September 5. Our problem is the governments did not honor the commitments in the agreements.
Right.
There was the problem. It created the problem there. We had a recent agreement in February, the same North Waziristan with Hafiz Gul Bahadur. It was not made public like the past, but it is still working. There is a peace after that. No major attack in North Waziristan since then.
Fine.
Okay. In Swat also, the situation is relatively better than the past. There are some incidents, but some people say they are hidden elements, maybe hardliners among these people. Your question was, I think that we should involve the real tribal elders in all the process. The problem was that we had a corrupt political system, political agent system in tribal regions. This was one of the reasons, the problem why the people are approaching Mangalbagh. Why? Because there was no justice.
When it's like the law of the jungle.
Yes. The second thing is that every government, they use those maliks who did not enjoy support, did not enjoy the backing of the people. That's why they lost support of the people.
Right.
The government should involve the real tribesmen who have influence on the people. And like I will tell you a very brief example. In 2006, when Mangalbagh, when the Lashkar-e-Islam Ansar-ul-Islam, they start fighting, the Afridi tribe, they had a jirga. They forced the two leaders of those groups, the previous leaders, to leave this place.
Right.
And they left.
Right.
Mufti Munib and Pir Saifur Rahman, they left the area.
But what does this conflict mean for the rest of the country?
It means that if we did not use the traditional way of jirga system, why the Afghanistan Grand Jirga was still Pak Afghan Jirga? Because of the North Waziristan agreement. That's why after the agreement, President Musharraf, President Karzai and George Bush, they had a meeting in the White House in September the same year.
Right.
And it was the base for the Afghan Jirga. We have had some problems.
We also have to do the same thing. So your comments.
Dekhiye, my first comment would be that Pakistan Parliament must get its act together. We should invite these militant groups or their representatives into the parliament, bring them in front of the nation, give them a face, give them a name, let the nation see what is their ideology, what do they want.
Right.
Let them come and explain themselves. Because what is happening is that by sending in small low-level jirgas to them who have no mandate, nothing, which the ideology of these militants have not come in front of the nation. If you know the ideology of these militants, the entire nation will group together against them, because basically these are hiding behind fear, these are hiding behind the terror factor. No media speaks against them, no religious scholar speaks against them, no person is willing to risk his life, because everything which these militants do, the only language they understand is bomb the place out. You know, whether it's the barber shop, whether it's the girls' school, or whether it's the military convoy, or whether it is the tribal elder. The system of tribal elders is finished in tribal areas. It has been replaced by militant groups, militant gangs. This new generation of militants that have come up is so powerful, the tribal elders are actually not effective.
But won't, like, you know, giving them a face or giving them exposure on the media actually give them more power?
Not at all. You see, the fact is, when you bring, for example, if you bring their suicide bombers and media, why the suicide bombers are not being brought on media? They should be brought, bring their ideology, explosives, weapons, all the equipment that they have, and the belief that we did the suicide bombing in Pakistan for this and this reason. So let the nation see what kind of ideology is this which is forcing itself through suicide bombings.
Right. But when we talk about giving these militants a face and, you know, bringing their ideology to the forefront, we have few leaders who are heading these militant organizations that are responsible for the suicide bombings within the country. Is the government of Pakistan, the army, the intelligence, the ISI, which is a feared intelligence agent, is it so ill-equipped that it cannot actually go after the people or the brains behind these operations?
You see, there are two aspects of this. Number one is, let me make it very clear that the Americans are protecting all those militant leaders who are waging a war against the state of Pakistan in the tribal areas. I'll give you example. Naik Muhammad signed a peace deal with Pakistan. Americans assassinated him. Every militant command, Jalaluddin Haqqani signs a peace deal with Pakistan. Americans are after his blood to assassinate him. Every militant leader who fights with Pakistan, Americans protect him. It's a known fact on record that the American drones loaded with Hellfire missiles locked on to Baitullah Masood so many times, and they let him go. They are not eliminating him. Baitullah Masood is using satellite phones, talking all over the world. Tracking him down is a 30-second job, and Americans are protecting him. On the other hand, within the Pakistani state, the problem is that parliament is not discussing this. Media is scared to bring those people on media and point finger at them. The religious scholars are afraid to take the name and condemn the suicide bombings by naming them. And civil society as well is scared, and the political parties are not discussing it. So what happens is the entire responsibility comes on the army. They want the mandate and support from the parliament, from the media, from the religious scholars, from the civil society. And let me add one more sentence. Even the judiciary is not supporting this cause, because the last terrorist hanged in this country was hanged in 2001. And when the nation has become hostage, the nation has to get together to decide what to do with these people, because this attitude continues.
So as long as, basically what we're saying is that as long as the country and its people continue to be afraid of these terrorists, there is no way that we can actually get rid of them.
Army alone cannot handle the situation. No, the nation has to get together.
Right. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Relations between Pakistan and Afghanistan are worsening day by day, while the security situation in Pakistan is also deteriorating. There is a need for the government of Pakistan to actually come up with an effective policy to deal with the terrorists. The judiciary, the civil society, the religious scholars all need to play their part, as you have heard from the conversation today. Otherwise, this problem is not going to be solved, and Pakistan is going to get out of control. That brings us to the end of this week's edition of World in Focus with me, your host, Amrat Haq. Please write in to us with your ideas, opinions and feedbacks on worldinfocus@ptv.com.pk. That's all for this week. See you again next week. Till then, goodbye and good evening.